From Jacob Zuma's name drop in the Epstein files to the alleged shooter appearing in court today in relation to DJ Warras, as well as General Senona being escorted out his office the weekend. And then we've got the ballistics expert who appeared at Madlanga Commission today, who just seemed very incompetent to me. He's either very incompetent and he got a promotion, or he messed with the evidence. There is no other way to look at it. Today was a bumper day, and we are going to touch on each and every one of those subjects. So get your favorite beverage and hang around with me because we are going to be going through everything. Now remember to immediately hit that like and subscribe button. And we are going to start with something that dominated the headlines over the weekend, and that is of Jacob Zuma and his name appearing in the Epstein files. Now, for years, these files were locked away. Judges sealed them, names were hidden, redacted, and the public was told there is nothing more to see here. But when they were finally opened, they didn't just expose one man, they exposed a system. In early 2026, a new batch of long-sealed court documents were released. We're talking about thousands and thousands of pages with emails, contact lists, testimony. These documents are now known as the Epstein files. And they weren't leaked, they weren't hacked, they were unsealed by a court during civil litigation tied to a trafficking network. And what they reveal isn't just disturbing, it's uncomfortable. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in 2019 on federal charges of the moving of minors for adult purposes. I can't say the word for YouTube. And he has already been convicted once before in 2018 under a plea deal that stunned experts. In this plea deal, he had to go to prison at night, but he was allowed to leave during the day. Have you ever heard of a plea deal like that? He died later that year while awaiting trial. He allegedly died by but a lot of people believe that he was actually killed. But the story does not end with his death. Now, we have to go to a place where a lot of this happened. And this was on an island known as Little St. James. It had 78 acres, one dock, and no neighbors. And everything that happened there had to pass through some.
We're on our way to Jeffrey Epstein's infamous private island, the notorious Caribbean hideaway where Epstein trafficked and sexually abused teenage girls is back in the spotlight. This boat captain, Guy Dom, ferried Epstein to and from the island.
There was a time I took Jeffrey Epstein's party of 4 out here to the island, and it's basically a woman about his age and a couple of girls that looked like they were 13, 14, maybe 15 years old, sisters. And I dropped them off. Didn't think anything of it.
Guy Dom says at the time he assumed that the passengers were Epstein's wife and kids. It wasn't until later that he learned Epstein didn't have a family.
It dawned on me, if those aren't his kids, maybe those were victims.
He gave us a tour of the island, which is just a 10-minute boat ride from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands.
Up on the hill here, we see Jeffrey Epstein's bedroom. Part of the bedroom has a desk in it so he could do work in there.
He shared this video with us he took inside of Epstein's bedroom. There's his desk and bed. And look at this. For some reason, he even had an office meant for an eye doctor. The island is now owned by a billionaire investor who bought it 2 years ago for $60 million. He reportedly plans to turn it into a luxury 25-room resort, which explains the presence of all those workers. A temple that Epstein built at the top of the island has been boarded up and painted over. When Inside Edition producer Will Evans tried to speak to the workers, they didn't have anything to say.
We're just curious what's going on with the island. Are you guys doing renovations, upkeep? What's going on?
This patrol boat started tailing us.
They started following us when we left, and they really don't seem to want us around.
Epstein Island, a place that this boat captain would rather forget.
The longer I think about it, the more I realize I probably helped him commit a crime.
Now we have to start about where it all happened, where billionaires perhaps go to hide their secrets. And for Jeffrey Epstein, this was Little St. James. 78 acres, one dock, and no neighbors. Now, Little St. James sits in the US Virgin Islands, technically American soil. Arrivals go through customs and departures are logged, which raises the first question: how many people come and go without being seen? And for nearly a decade, day-to-day operations were overseen by a couple from South Africa. Their description of the job was simple. They are currently based in Jeffreys Bay. It was like running a hotel. The managers say they never witnessed abuse, never saw anyone underage, and never had someone ask for help. Now, you heard from the boat captain there at the beginning. He said the girls were like 13, 14 years old, and many other employees of Jeffrey Epstein on the island have come out and said the girls were young, underage, and that they also mentioned, before we knew about the appearance in the files, for example, in one of the Jeffrey Epstein documentaries, someone who worked there mentioned the presence of Bill Clinton. The South African couple claims that everything was above board. They said passports were checked, guests were documented, and nothing appeared out of place. If that's true, then everything that happened, according to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, in a place where this couple couldn't see. Survivors tell a different story. They describe constant supervision, managed in movement, as well as staff who were always present. Not accusing, not speculating, just stating they were there. In this one documentary I watched on Epstein, this girl, she tried to run away and she realized she couldn't go anywhere because she was on an island. And she said there were cameras everywhere. They were constantly being watched. And eventually Jeffrey Epstein came up to her and said, "Where do you think you're going? You can't go anywhere." And this is what it was like on this island. Now, Kathy and Miles Alexandra, this couple, weren't celebrities. They weren't politicians. They weren't guests. They were managers employed to run Little St. James day to day. And one handled the operations and the other handled hospitality. And for nearly a decade, they lived closer to Jeffrey Epstein's residence than anyone else did on the island. They lived just 50 meters away. And in recent interviews, Alexandras have said that they never saw abuse, they never saw underage guests, and no one ever asked them for help. They describe their role as logistical, professional, and detached, like running a hotel. And if that's true, then nothing illegal crossed in their line of sight. But this isn't the first time that they have spoken publicly. In 2011, the British tabloid, the Daily Mail, published an interview with the same couple, and the story was different. In that earlier interview, Kathy Alexandra was quoted as saying she had seen Epstein's arrest warrant. Young women walked around without their shirts or their bras, and some girls might have been 16 or 17. Those statements contradict to their current position. And it's the same people, the same island, the same years we are talking about, but two different versions of reality. In the Epstein files, a survivor alleges that the managers were always present and that they escorted the girls around the island and that they comforted her after she was abused. Now, the Alexandras deny this completely, and no charges have been laid against them, and no court has ruled on these claims. But the contradiction in their story remains. And then we have to fast forward to when Jay-Z's name is dropped. So in March 2010, Jacob Zuma is then president of South Africa, and he was on a formal visit to the United Kingdom. He stayed at Buckingham Palace for 3 of the nights he was there. This is important. We've got to go over his schedule. So he was officially there from the 3rd to the 5th of March 2010. And the 2nd of March, he flew. The 3rd of March, he was received by the Queen. They had a royal banquet. The 4th of March, he went to Downing Street, another royal banquet, and he was staying at Buckingham Palace. And on the 5th of March, he attended a working breakfast with the principals of the royal family in Buckingham Palace. So he was at Buckingham Palace during all this time. And then afterwards, on the 5th of March, he had a meeting with NGOs at South Africa House. And then we come to the 6th of March, which is a Friday. Now, Friday night in London, And Jacob Zuma is allegedly, out of all the things that he could do, he's having allegedly a meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. And we're going to go into the emails now about it. What was meeting with Jeffrey Epstein so important about? You've had 2 days to dine with royalty, and in your third night in London, you dine allegedly with Jeffrey Epstein. And every hour was planned, every movement was documented, at least officially. Now, on March the 4th, 2010, an email was sent. The sender wrote that he was a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and he had been asked to help arrange a small dinner at the Ritz Hotel London for Jacob Zuma. This email was sent on the 4th of March 2010, and to put us in perspective, Jay-Z had spent the 2 nights at Buckingham Palace, and for the last night he wasn't staying anywhere, but he had plans during the day for his official visit. He was going to Parliament, among other things, and that evening he was going to be spending allegedly with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the first email, where I'm going to read it completely, comes from a Mark Lloyd. He appears to be some sort of fixer for Jeffrey Epstein in arranging girls. And he said, "Dear Vera, I am a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and I've been asked to help arrange a small dinner tomorrow night for President Jacob Zuma of South Africa at the Ritz Hotel at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening." It goes on to say, "Jeffrey suggested that I invite you, as you would be certain to add some real glamour to the occasion. A friend of Jeffrey's is a friend of mine, so I have no hesitation inviting you to join us. If you are not put off by the extremely short notice and would be able to accept, can you let me have a little more information about yourself, as well as your full name, as I have to present the president with a summary of the guests in advance. With best regards, Mark Lloyd." And the recipient replied, she said, "Hello, Mark. It is very kind of you and Jeffrey to invite me, and I will be honored to accept your invitation. About myself, my name is redacted. I'm from Russia, and I have lived in London for the last 2 years. I am a model represented by Select Model Agency. I have been modeling for the past 6 years and have lived in Paris, New York, Barcelona, and Japan. Let me know if you need any more information. Will it be a black tie event, or is a sleeveless cocktail dress okay?" So the next email is sent from Peter Mandelson, who has been associated with political dealings with regards to the Labour Party in the United Kingdom, sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein. And it begins, this email was sent on the 6th of March, so the day after the dinner. The dinner happened on the Friday, and this is on the Saturday. And it says, "Jeffrey, name redacted." We think it refers to the Russian model. So redacted was magnificent. She is that rare combination of elegance, charm, and natural beauty. And what is more, she is smart with it. She made a very positive impression on all those who met her. So thank you very much indeed for this introduction. That aside, we all found Jacob Zuma a much more impressive character than we had expected. He displayed more gravitas and none of the macho bluster he is generally portrayed as having in the tabloid press. I am also summoned to see President Zuma tomorrow, so that would be this Sunday, on the 7th of March, for a private meeting. And perhaps the most chilling question, do we like South Africa? So from the Epstein files, we know that Jeffrey Epstein was paying close attention to the politics in South Africa. He was paying close attention to Parliament, as well as who was winning in the polls. And this is just very disturbing because there have been a lot of allegations that have been leveled at Jeffrey Epstein, that he was perhaps a handler for perhaps some intelligence agencies that have been brought up. None of these have been proven. I'm just speculating on what has been going around, as well as that he has perhaps been blackmailing people for information, especially the wealthy and the rich, based on interactions with these girls. Because in the files that came out, Bill Gates there was an email to Bill Gates Foundation where it seems as though Jeffrey Epstein was implying that Bill Gates would lose a lot of donors if the public found out that he had to organize some antibiotics to treat an STD that Bill Gates had allegedly caught from Russian girls that he might have passed on to Melinda Gates. So on that reply to "Do we like South Africa?" Epstein replied, "Very much. Can you ask him about the girl next to Mark Lloyd?" So that is presumably Vera, the Russian model, my new future ex. So what was Jay-Z doing with the girl? We don't know. And Jacob Zuma has denied ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein. He has denied ever meeting this girl. Now, what does he mean by "do we like South Africa"? Do we like South Africa for what exactly? So did Jeffrey Epstein have info on Jacob Zuma? And if so, what was he doing with this information? What pressure or was he perhaps exerting over Jacob Zuma? Because I really don't like that statement. Do we like South Africa? Yes, we do. And this perhaps indicates, and this is speculation on my part, that there could have been some interference on a political level from people outside of the country. And this has just been a crazy press weekend. So News 24 published an article that said that Jeffrey Epstein had been recruiting girls in Cape Town. There are emails from his various fixers to himself where they go recruiting from Paris, Barcelona in Europe. And one of them says, "Hey, I want to go back to Cape Town because the girls are beautiful and they are so warm." And Cape Town is a hub for modeling in South Africa. We know Cape Town is full of aspiring models. Some of them were even appearing in swimsuit magazines. And Jeffrey's fixers were mentioning these swimsuit magazines with regards to the girls and saying like, "Hey, if you could sponsor a photo shoot for these models in Cape Town, especially if I could get them to come to Cape Town with me, then I will be in a better position." A better position for what? To smuggle them? To perhaps traffic them? So this is all very suspicious. And there have been more South African names that have been dropped in the Epstein files. We know that Elon Musk is in there. And I will be following the story as it comes out. And now we have to go to another story, and that is about General Senona. His testimony stopped at the Madlanga Commission last week, but that would not be the last time that he was in the news. This story involves the Hawks, SAPS leadership, as well as the Madlanga Commission, and a suspected crime kingpin. So at the center of this scandal is General Senona, the Hawks' top official in KZN. He is head of the Hawks in that province. And he testified before the Madlanga Commission last week. We watched it. He wasn't very impressive with his "I do not recalls" and "I do not knows," a very selective memory, and the Madlanga Commission is investigating political interference and crime infiltration within the SAPS. And during that testimony, Senona admitted he had a close personal relationship with Vusimusi Kat Matlala, a man who is facing attempted murder charges. Now, the commission heard the evidence that Senona allegedly shared sensitive information with Kat Matlala, forwarded confidential affidavits, and even advised him on SAPS-related tenders. And the commission's interim report was released last week, and that found prima facie evidence of wrongdoing against him and recommended criminal investigations and decisions on suspensions and prosecutions. Remember when he came before the commission last week, he was very upset. He was blaming General Mkonasi for his suspension. And then Justice Madlanga was like, it's actually probably us that instituted this. And President Cyril Ramaphosa accepted the recommendations, and then everything escalated over the weekend. Senona claims that over the weekend, he was removed from his office, his devices were confiscated, He was escorted out and he was followed home by SAPS vehicles. Through his lawyers, he says that his life is in danger and now he's in hiding. Now, this life in danger thing is something that we've heard before. He brought it up in front of the commission. He even said that during lunch, he told the commissioners he wants state protection. He wants protection because his life is in danger. So this is something that he's been harping on for a long time. And his legal team argues that only the Hawks, his employer, can suspend him. And they say what happened was simply unlawful. Now, what exactly happened? We're going to get into it, because KwaZulu-Natal SAPS leadership under General Mogotsi tells a different story. Police say Senona came to the office on Saturday and he was acting sus. So it was a Saturday, and firstly, according to them, Senona doesn't come to work on a weekend. And he did not sign the security register, even though his secretary came in and they signed the register. He parked outside instead of using his secure bay. Okay, that raises an eyebrow. He entered through a pedestrian entrance and he sat in his car for nearly an hour with another officer. I would love to know who that was. They say this behavior was highly unusual. I agree, and triggered a security concern. Now, according to the SAPS, Senona was not escorted out. He chose to leave, and he was only told not to remove his state-issued equipment, such as his laptop, and no one followed him home. And their response was blunt. If he's in hiding, police don't know what he's hiding from. The Hawks themselves say that Senona is still officially head of the KZN Hawks. They did not order his removal, and any discipline must happen internally, not through SAPS provincial leadership. So right now, we really don't know what is happening. The way he went about this is very sus. And to go in on a Saturday after a meeting with someone in your car and to sort of not sign the security register. Senona, when he appeared before the Madlanga Commission, he did not come across as an honest and truthful person, which makes me think that perhaps he was trying to do something to cover his tracks. We know he is very upset about this whole ordeal because he is a career police officer, and he feels as though what is happening to him is unfair. And I do think that perhaps, in my own opinion, he was trying perhaps to cover his tracks a bit, especially in pending those criminal charges that might be loading against him. General Mogotsi issued his own statement saying that General Senona's suspicious behavior has raised eyebrows, and that he is accused of bypassing security protocols, and also that they are worried about his state-issued computer and documents, which he attempted to take with him after he left, but was prevented from doing so. And according to the statement, it says the South African Police Service has responsibility to safeguard sensitive information from leakage. And with Major General Senona's testimony at the Madlanga Commission revealing that he once sent out police documents to a private person. And that's true. It does raise questions about what information he has allegedly been leaking. And the unusual events of the day, him, coming in on a Saturday, parking his car on the street, compelled the security personnel on duty, especially those who were maintaining the camera system, to inform the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, Lieutenant General Mogotsi, about the unusual activities which they observed. So that is the reason that General Mogotsi acted the way he did. And I mean, remember that affidavit, that Nanji affidavit that was allegedly leaked to CAT? I'd also be worried about what information is he trying to access. They say a human life is priceless, but in Johannesburg's CBD, prosecutors say one was allegedly taken for only 25,000 Rand. On the 16th of December last year, beloved DJ, radio personality, businessman, and security company owner Warwick Stock, better known as DJ Warras, was shot 5 times outside the Zambezi building in Johannesburg's CBD. Now, more than a month later, the court case has taken a disturbing turn because the man police say who pulled the trigger has finally appeared in court, and nothing about this case is lining up neatly. DJ Warras wasn't just a media personality. He was a well-known DJ, a radio and TV presenter, a businessman, a security company owner, as well as a social activist. Many people say that he was trying to improve South Africa for his children. He was a father, a brother, and a son. And according to investigators, the trouble might have started when his company was recently involved in removing building hijackers from Zambezi building in Johannesburg's CBD. And before his death, Warwick Stock had allegedly received threats, applied for protection orders, and was locked in a dispute involving illegal rent collection at the building. Then on December the 16th, he was gunned down in broad daylight. 6 days after the murder, police arrested Victor Majola, a 44-year-old Soweto taxi boss. The state alleges that Majola orchestrated the hit, was involved in planning the murder, and is linked to the scene through CCTV footage and witness statements. Majola applied for bail, arguing he is not a flight risk, he owns taxis and assets, and he has dependents, remember those 12 children, and that case against him is based on assumptions. But prosecutors weren't buying it. They told the court that Majola's release could interfere with witnesses. He was placed there by an eyewitness, one of the street vendors, and threatened the administration of justice. And investigators hinted last week, Monday, that more arrests were coming, including the alleged shooter. And perhaps they were right, because fast forward to Friday night, during a crime intelligence-driven operation at the Marathon Informal Settlement in Primrose, Ekurhuleni, police arrest Armindo Joaquim Pakula, aged 25. Remember, the shooter was described as very young, and he is a Mozambican national. The state says that Pakula is the alleged gunman, that he is in South Africa illegally, and he faces charges of murder, premeditated murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and contravention of the Immigration Act. And he appeared in the Johannesburg's Magistrates Court today on the 2nd of February 2026. Police have previously described the shooter as a short man with dreadlocks, but dreadlocks could be easily removed. I'm going to put pictures here. You can decide for yourself. And we know that Pakula, when he appeared in court, he has no dreadlocks. And according to Eyewitness News, the alleged hit on DJ Warras cost 25,000 Rand. 25,000 Rand for a human life. The money was allegedly split 3 ways. 7,000 Rand to Pakula, the alleged shooter, a share to the accomplice seen on CCTV footage with the gift bag, and a share to the owner of the firearm who has not yet been arrested. Let that sink in. A man's life, a public figure, a father, a friend, a colleague, allegedly reduced to 7,000 Rand. In court, Pakula admitted that he has no legal documents, he has no fixed address, and no money for a private lawyer. He was advised to apply for Legal Aid South Africa, which he accepted. Despite this, Pakula is insistent on applying for bail, claimed police had taken his ID documents, and maintained he wanted a formal bail application. And the state immediately pushed back. Prosecutors told the court, there is nothing to verify, no passport, there is no lawful presence why he should be in the country. And the magistrate agreed to postpone the matter to the 9th of Feb 2026. and he will remain behind bars until then. This case isn't just about one murder. It raises serious questions about targeted hits in Johannesburg's CBD, the role of organized crime, the dangers faced by people challenging illegal operations, and how cheaply human life is sometimes valued. And with one suspect denied bail, one alleged shooter in custody, and at least one more suspect still missing, this case is far from over. Now we are going to what happened at Madlanga today. So we have to catch you up a bit. So on Friday, a name was mentioned, but the name has since been sealed. So I mentioned the name on Friday on my post if you want to go look for it. But I can't mention it anymore because Madlanga has sealed the witness. And this witness is the alleged go-between Shadrick Sabir and Katie Malefe. Think plastic bag, think that person who was hugging that plastic bag. And he was going to testify on Friday, but he had a very competent advocate. He was irritating a lot of people. This advocate, he was irritating me. But at the end of the day, we all want a competent advocate to defend us if we end up in a situation like this. And that advocate was not taking no for an answer. He said, listen, my client is not ready. I have medical issues the weekend. He can only come. We receive documents at a later stage. We will only be able to testify later next week. And a compromise was reached where he is going to be appearing tomorrow. So that is the witness who is prepped for tomorrow. And this witness has a lot of questions to answer. For example, he is a police officer and he has been mentioned as doing errands for Kat Matlala, helping him with a boat motor, as well as allegedly fetching bags, plastic bags full of something very precious from Katie Malefe's house and allegedly delivering it to Shadrick Sabir's house. So he's going to have a lot of questions to answer for. And he has been involved in WhatsApp chats with 16 individuals. So I think a lot of names are going to drop tomorrow, and it's going to be a very important couple of days. But we have to go over today's testimony. So today's witness was someone completely different. I think they got him in on short notice, not to waste the day. That's one thing about Justice Madlanga is he is very consistent with his time. He hates it when people are late. When they are late, then he tells them to come and explain why they are late in front of South Africa. He does not want to waste South Africans' time. And they got another witness in, and that is the contradictions and the testimony of Captain Lawrence Mogotsi. Now, Captain Lawrence Mogotsi was the ballistics expert on the Armand Swart case. And as I go through it, I will be explaining everything because this has become so convoluted, so many names, so many things that are happening. But basically, a police captain tells investigators a murder weapon is linked to multiple killings, then submits a ballistics report with none of these links. Was it an honest mistake or did something disappear? Armand Swart was killed in a case of mistaken identity. So what occurred is this relates to a tender scandal like so many others. So this company, Qtech, was manufacturing springs for 6 Rand a spring. And a whistleblower found out that these springs were somehow ending up at Transnet. So taxpayer money was being used to buy these springs that were being sold for 6 Rand for 120 Rand a spring. So an order of about 25,000 Rand worth in springs actually ballooned into a couple of million. And what happened after that is that this whistleblower, he blew the whistle, and the people were going to investigate the contract, the tender. And the tender belonged to Lucky Malefe. Lucky Malefe is Katie Malefe's nephew. He is still on the run. He is being sought by police, and he was working at Transnet. Now, this tender, when it was going to be investigated, all of his other tenders were going to be investigated, and it was going to be a big deal. And I always say, I'm actually not scared of murderers. I'm not scared of murderers. I'm scared of getting in the way of mostly scam artists and their money. because as soon as you get in the way of someone and their money, then you don't know what they're going to do. And this is why they had to kill the whistleblower very quickly. And we know that according to testimony, Katie Malefe is seen with Michael Tau. He is that police detective who was allegedly moonlighting as a hitman. And they are seen scouting Q-Tech. They are seen, basically, they have the whistleblower's information being sent and identifying him. And this is a very this is all according to testimony from witness B and witness C and witness A. Now, on the day of the murder, it was a case of mistaken identity. So Arman Swart was just working at Q-Tech. He didn't have anything to do with the saga at all. He resembled the whistleblower. And because he resembled the whistleblower, they thought it was the whistleblower. And as he pulled up to work, then they shot him more than 25 times. They shot him more than 25 times with an AK-47. And this man was a father of 2. He was married, and it is just simply disgusting what happened to him. And his family has been in contact with me on TikTok, and they have said, Carri, thank you for keeping the story alive. So Captain Mogotsi was the ballistics analyst that was assigned to this case. There is a massive contradiction in his testimony compared to that of witness B. Remember, witness A and witness B were those 2 investigating officers on this case, and they were taking that docket with them everywhere because people kept on requesting to see the docket. They were taking it with them to lunch. They were taking it home. People from the cold case unit were requesting access to the docket because they all wanted to see what they had on Katie Malefe. And this just shows you how deep the rot runs. Now, Captain Mogotsi was on the phone to witness B. This is according to her testimony. And during the call, he allegedly said something explosive. He said that the guns seized were linked to multiple murders, that they were connected to several individuals. And this wasn't just the SWAT case. This wasn't casual talk. This was ballistics evidence of the kind that can collapse syndicates and link cases across provinces or destroy prosecutions if mishandled. Witness B has received this phone call from the ballistics analyst, Captain Mogotsi, and when the report arrives, she's expecting to see all these matches. But here is the problem. The links are missing. When she gets a report, there is no mention of multiple murders, high-profile connections, cross-case linkages. Instead, investigators say they received what looked like an incomplete report. That triggered alarm bells. Witness B went personally into the ballistics lab to question it, and shortly after, a criminal case was opened against her. So let's rewind to the day that Arman Swart was killed. This was on the 17th of April, 2024, as he was arriving at work. Captain Mogotsi was at the crime scene. He testified that he could immediately tell an AK-47 was used. The AK-47 bullet cores were found, although there were no casings. So the casings were allegedly found in the car with Michael Tau. That is the alleged policeman who is also the alleged hitman. And he had put them in a packet. And he was actually caught red-handed because when he was stopped a few hours later, he had those very same casings in his possession. And he was like, oh, I was hunting. I was out hunting with my brother. That's why I have them. It's just odd. After allegedly phoning witness B and saying, hey, listen, these guns are linked to all these different murders, then witness B gets a report and it's basically unusable. She takes it to the prosecutor. It is full of errors. There is something like 5 mistakes on the report, including the incorrect case number that was used. And this ballistics expert was promoted after this. Just keep that in mind. And when asked about this at the Madlanga Commission, he said it's because of the case workload and because they don't have typists available to assist them. Is that he couldn't even get a serial number off of the weapon. And the same weapon was sent to KwaZulu-Natal in September 2024. And that ballistics expert was able to get the serial number, and they were able to link it to all the other murders, those of DJ Somebody, DJ Vetus, the attempted murder of Kat's ex-girlfriend, and Don Tinlile, who was actually killed in a case of mistaken identity. So this was a gun that was allegedly being used by hitmen, and this ballistics expert couldn't link it. But we have to ask ourselves the question. So he linked it when he told Witness B that it's linked to multiple killings. But what happened in the time that he phoned Witness B to the time he submitted his report? Witness B tried to talk to him a lot and say, look, you need to fix this report. The prosecutor says that the case is going to be struck from the roll if you don't fix it. Witness B and her other investigators came and found him he was at a braai, and he's very upset about this. He was on leave and he was at a braai, and it was during his off time, and she found him and she forced him to go to the ballistics lab, and he was only released at 2 a.m. in the morning after his supervisors intervened. And after that, he opened a case of kidnapping against her. And I just think Witness B was trying to figure out what was happening with this case. We know that she was not allowed to go into the ballistics lab after this. Witness B was a very thorough investigator. I listened to her whole testimony and I made notes of all of it. And she followed up with everything. With Michael Tau, remember they were trying to get him released because he was diabetic. And then she even went to go and visit the prison. And the prison is like, we have diabetic patients here all the time. We can deal with them. So this is someone who is a really thorough investigator and who really does her homework. Now, one of the things that I found interesting was him accusing certain cops of being dirty based on his own actions. And based on his own actions, we can only come to two conclusions. Number one, he is thoroughly incompetent. I feel sorry for all the cases he has handled to make such mistakes on a ballistics report. I mean, this is a science. This is something that if you are trained to do it, it should be relatively easy to do it. Or number two, he was covering. Something happened, in my own opinion, from the time that he phoned Witness B and said, hey, these guns are linked to multiple people. He denies this now and says, you know what, I haven't even accessed the system at that point, so I couldn't have known. To the time that that ballistics report just came back so wholly incomplete. And we have to ask ourselves the question, who has that type of power? And just before I leave, some more breaking news just in. So on the 2nd of February 2026, just an hour ago, National Assembly Speaker Toko Didiza made a decision that sent shockwaves throughout Parliament. She refused to approve subpoenas compelling Brown Mogotsi and Paul O'Sullivan to appear in person before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. And the reasons she gave? Security concerns. But here is the problem. These aren't just witnesses. The committee isn't investigating a minor issue, and both men have come up again and again in testimony. Brown Mogotsi is allegedly linked to suspended police minister Senzo Ngunu and alleged underworld figure Vusimusi Kath Matlala. And Paul O'Sullivan is accused by previous witnesses of being ineffectively in charge of IPID. These are not side characters, no side quests here. They are central nodes in these allegations. The committee wanted in-person testimony. Why? Because physical presence allows cross-examination, body language matters, and documents can be challenged in real time. But both men refused. Their reasons: O'Sullivan said he had credible death threats and is currently overseas. Mogotsi said he would only appear if Parliament paid for his private security. The committee rejected virtual testimony and they voted to invoke subpoena powers. But here is the catch. Parliament cannot issue a subpoena without the Speaker's approval. In her formal response, Didiza blocked the subpoenas. Her reasoning: on Brown Mogotsi, she said the committee failed to prove it conducted a proper threat and risk assessment, could not show it meaningfully engaged with his safety concerns. Her words were, "I am unable to rebut this claim in the absence of proof that a formal threat and risk assessment was actually conducted." On Paul O'Sullivan, she issued a legal warning. Refusing virtual testimony without strong justification, she said, could violate the principle of legality and open Parliament up to a judicial review. In short, she thinks that Parliament could lose in court against Paul O'Sullivan. The move immediately angered opposition parties. Remember, Didiza is the Speaker. She belongs to the ANC. Both the Economic Freedom Fighters and the Democratic Alliance called for the committee report to be withdrawn and stronger action against non-cooperation. Instead, the Speaker sided with procedure over pressure, and that's where the controversy explodes. So here is the real question. If witnesses central to corruption allegations are too unsafe to testify in person, what does this say about the system they are testifying about? And if Parliament can't compel them, who actually holds the power in this country? Like I've said many times before, when we had the Eastern Cape floods, helicopters were sent in 2 weeks later. Whereas when Katie Malefe was being arrested, there was a helicopter outside of his house immediately. So we have to ask ourselves, who is really in charge of this country? And I put it to you that it is not the government. It is not the people we've elected. Now, thank you for watching. This was a bit of a longer episode. I'm trying with a bit of a different format. Comment below if you like it. Comment below if you don't like it. Let me know. YouTube, the algorithm punishes me if I release more than one video a day. That is why I've tried to condense everything into one. Now, thank you to all my members. You sponsored the plant fund behind me. And I'd also like to thank all my viewers and all my subscribers. To my subscribers, we are almost there. We are almost at 20,000. I cannot believe it. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. And remember, it is dangerous out there. So remember to watch your back.